Hey, it's Shapes, and welcome to another edition of AniTube Digest, where we go over the best and not so best anime YouTube videos to come out this week from the 21st of March to the 28th of March. Why is it almost the end of March already? What the fuck? Okay, first for the video that I thought was not good. I'm sorry. And I don't want to... It's so funny. I used to go in, dude. I was watching a previous digest, like a really early one. I go in. And I don't, I cut things too. It's so much better. I suck at this now. I'm sorry, guys. And anyway, Echidnut, how to be an anime YouTuber, ready to cringe. I was like, yeah, I might probably not like this video. I'm gonna watch it anyway, and maybe I just won't say. I don't even know if I talked about the last video they made that I did watch. And I was considering making it, and then it was one of those bits that I just cut. That I was like, I don't have anything to say about it. I'll just be like, this was boring, or whatever. This particular one, how to be an anime YouTuber. I did wish for some more deeper cuts. I don't know what I was expecting, really. I get it's kind of for a casual, normie type audience. Like, Echidnut's going for really that general anime adjacent almost. Like, the first, they kind of organize this video in a step-by-step list, and the first one is to watch anime, and then it's optional, it's haha. I get the whole thing is satirical, and you're just trying to be funny, although the cadence just doesn't do it for me. It's not delivered in a way that is funny to me, just saying. And I get that it's completely subjective. I get people that the substance itself is funny, and the delivery doesn't have to be particularly remarkable. But yeah, I don't know. What made this difficult for me in general is like I get it that it's a joke. Pretty much almost everything you're saying, which was a little weird. But like, yeah, the actual delivery it wasn't really entertaining in that particular way. It was just kind of boring. Not all the time are you taking this kind of making this as a joke. There is this one out of the blue moment, like kind of towards the end, where you really do give genuine advice of be yourself and make the content you want to make and things like that. And then you do mention that this is actual genuine advice, and the rest of it, this is a joke, guy. The rest of this was a joke, guys. Yeah. I don't know. It's just kind of I do appreciate that sincerity, and I kind of would have preferred that because me. I don't know if you know me. I just kind of prefer that kind of more genuine stuff and sarcastic, unless I know you personally or just like there's something about the delivery that's charming or funny to me, then I'll get it. But usually I don't get that sort of thing. But that was a little weird to kind of throw that genuine, earnest advice towards the end of that. It was a little weird. But, I guess that's fair. It was just kind of a strange choice. But then, I just wish that some parts... I just wish there was more of your genuine, some of your insight, and it didn't feel so fake. Like when this part where you're like, putting the thumbnail and the tags, and you're putting a bunch of tags of people you're jealous of, and and that's a nice joke. Because you see other people's that's cool. But listing all and it's not in your description. I actually did check your description once. You were like, or in the description of it. I think the commitment to that would have been funny if you just put that in the description as well. Little clever things like that, but it didn't feel like you were really committing to anything or the bits in particular. One of the things I did like was separating the four types of anime YouTubers into the tank class, like an RPG basically, like warrior, rogue, and the rogue was you're just taking clips and you just put a watermark as if it's yours or something. You're kind of lampooning some YouTubers in that way, and that's nice. But that particular one is very telling because you put the mage class as basically every analytical content, like funny and not. It was like reviews, reactions, compilations, which are not even, it's faceless. You're not even saying anything. So you're not really like an anime YouTuber in the same way. You're just kind of an anime channel, to me. And then the fourth is basically everything else. And it was just so weird. It looked very broad span. But I think that's coming from your experience, which is fair and interesting. But I guess it was just sort of came off to me as you don't really have an understanding of the space, so it's hard for me to fully appreciate. But that maybe you are representative of other people that is what they agree with. You know, the only anime YouTubers are Trash Taste and like some reviewers, I guess, and Mother's Basement. That's pretty much the extent. And then okay, I get that. That's, I guess, fair. I'm not trying to be like, oh, don't you know me or something. Like, obviously not. I get that. You have over 180,000 subs, whatever. But like, I don't know. I wasn't expecting you to get like know the smaller people, but just I don't know. Just having a better sense of the landscape to me. I guess that is your perspective. Like, you didn't even cover like is the I guess you would call like for Neverworld a reviewer, I suppose. Although now really pretty much all he does is news stuff. I don't know. It's hard to like. I appreciate the creativity of that section. Is all I'm saying, really. Even though I'm still picking it apart, basically. But yeah, like, I mean, I was kind of like bummed that there wasn't as much personal gripe. Like the one note about like editing, where it's like after you've pirated Sony Vegas and then it crashes a bunch of times, so then you get Premiere and After Effects, and then you kind of just talk about editing in a vague sense. I don't know. I think that would have been a little like, your audience isn't going to fully get it, but there might be some people who might relate to it if they're also not like anime YouTubers are going to be watching this video, not, you know, not out of malice or something, but out of just none of us watch each other. You know, that's just kind of a common thing, is like all of us are an island and we're very to ourselves for the most part. Like, we know of each other, but we don't. There's not much interaction or anything. I don't know. I kind of would have expected some more deep cuts or more clever things, I suppose. But maybe I'm just being like too overly critical or something. I'm also being really nice. I think, at least I thought. I'm usually a lot more snarky. Years ago I was. I can't say that now. Just lampoon. I'm such a shell of a human being these days. It's sad. Anyway, yeah, I didn't really like the video. Okay, now for some videos that I thought were decent. I thought they were pretty good, or interesting, and enjoyed them. This first one is from the Anime Advisor. I'm not sure if I've covered their channel before. This one is this the best anime on Netflix? And I gotta tell you, I can't recall the name of it at the moment. It is definitely one of those anime that went under the radar. I do remember hearing about it and then being promoted a little bit, and then like it coming out, but then very few people talked about it. It's one of those like stealth drops that Netflix does, you know, and like no one's talking about. It's really tough with a lot of their anime releases, unless it's like this really big title like Beastars or something, where it ends up getting like pretty well marketed, or like kind of popular source material or something. Otherwise, stealth drop. You're not going to know this is on Netflix. So I appreciate you really talking about this and hyping it up in a way. I like your description of it, and I also like a little bit of backgrounds towards the end of diving a bit into the manga and the author, as well as seeing that there was a live action version as well. Although it was brief. I did wish there was a little bit more of it. It wasn't all collected at the very end, where it felt like, oh, I've run out of things to say, but I'm not quite at 5 minutes, so let's find a little more to say. Yeah, I don't know. It kind of felt like that a little bit. I like kind of tacked on at the end. And that's really interesting, at least to me, where I try to get a broader context of this show and what the circumstances are, and like what makes it interesting besides the content itself. Which you do a good job kind of selling and like being very earnest about it. You can tell you really like it. I would say that like there was parts that did feel repeated, or just kind of cyclical, of like, you're going back to this is a very wholesome show, you know, and things like, and kind of repeating things. I get like kind of avoiding spoilers where you're talking about, but there's parts where you're talking about like, oh, it actually delves into this topic that's serious, and the tackles that, you know, you're kind of throwing themes out. And when you do that, I kind of would have preferred if you just give an example. You don't have to give the plot of the whole episode or anything, but just like easily give specifics, you know? Besides the initial synopsis, and I don't know if I repeat myself here, but like, I get that you would want to avoid spoilers and stuff, And I mean, to me, it's like if spoilers are going to incentivize people to watch them, to watch a show, which sometimes it has for me. If I learn about plot details, I'm like, that sounds interesting. I want to check that out. I'm not going to be interested as much if you're just going to be like, it's about a robot and a boy and you know, and trying to be vague. It doesn't really work, right? It's like, you know, you're trying to sell Madoka Magica and like, it gets dark, trust me. But you gotta kind of have to nudge a little bit and be like, yeah, so this a little plot detail, you know what I mean? Not that this is the kind of show like that, and honestly, it doesn't seem like the kind of show where like I'm not telling you to like spoil a character death or something like that. There might be some things that there are certain boundaries and stuff. You could say like mild spoilers, but like I would have loved to if you give like I especially liked this scene in episode 2 where this and this and this happens and that was especially funny. You know, if you got more specific, I think it'd be easier for me to follow it and be enticed to watch it, but also it would give you less things to, you wouldn't be as cyclical, it wouldn't feel as cyclical if you're when you're talking about it. Yeah, so that's kind of my 2 cents on it. I generally did enjoy the video, and I'm happy again that you talked about this particular one, because it's really, you know, not going to get the numbers in the same way, you know, and you're talking to the guy who just released an Inku video that's no way is that going to get anywhere past like 5K or something. It's like no one gives a shit. So I mean, I get it, and I props to you for putting this stuff out, putting this kind of video out. I enjoyed it. It was a good time. I've been enjoying Joey and Garnt and Connor's streaming content lately. And I will say Echidnut did lampshade it pretty well with just go on cruise control and make a stream, just stream where there's more revenue and more there's an audience there, and then you know, and more money, and then just put the clips on YouTube kind of thing. But then you know, I do appreciate that they've been putting some genuine effort into the compilation and the edit of it, and it's not just like a dump or something like that. So this one I called out, it almost destroyed our friendship. They're talking about the Jump King race that they did. I didn't watch it live or see the VODs or whatever. But what they did is they did 3 hours of streaming at the same time, and they're like on a voice chat, but sometimes they mute, whatever. And they're basically playing Jump King against each other, and whoever is highest on the map, if you've ever played Jump King, at the end of the 3 hours wins. And so that was a fun time because it was like there's this drama of like if they get super high, but it's not judged based on how high you were able to go, but where you're currently at. So if you fell a significant portion, which they did very often, there was always a chance where one of them had been ahead for so long, and then freak chance like last minute it switches or something. There wasn't anything super narrative heavy in that regard. There was kind of a general flow of like Garnt kind of does more well at the beginning, but then Joey just happens to get the hang of it quicker and ends up doing much better, even though both of them fall a lot. And it was fun, but like the edit in particular from one of Mudon's goons, one of Mudon's editors that he has in his circle, I guess. It's really interesting. What is let me just see what the name of Joey credits it as edited by Mudon Media Group's Enicorn. Yeah, awesome. Yeah, so Enicorn in particular edited it, and they did a really good job. Very constantly moving, a lot of quippy edits and creative stuff. Nothing too out of the pocket, so it ends up being like overstaging the content itself. And it's not an easy task to trim collectively 6 hours of footage and parse it into 17 minutes that is, or 15 because of the ad or whatever, that is consistently really entertaining. And it was like really fun, like very YouTube poopy, which I'm very much of a sucker for, where it's just constant jokes and riffing and whatever, but there's a narrative to it. It really almost felt like a YouTube poop of sorts. It was kind of funny in that way. But they really, they're both really entertaining here, and I really like the edit. And it was a fun video. It was just really entertaining and enjoyable. And there's other videos like that, but I especially like the collaborative aspect in this. The competition here, I think it was especially fun time. Best Guy Ever trying out something that I think is a little different for him. I don't remember him doing stuff like this. at least make putting a clip, an hour-long clip from one of his podcasts. I think it's the monthly one, onto his main channel, and then kind of editing clips over that, and some footage and some panels here and there, but mostly over like Elden Ring footage, which is fair. So he's talking about this idea. It's unscripted, but he has like the notes and things like that. I appreciated the intro at the beginning, kind of giving you the full context of everything. But I just thought the actual conceit is really interesting, where he's had this idea about thematic versus technical storytelling, and he wanted to articulate, communicate that using Bell and Summer Wars as different examples, but then kind of broadening it and talking a lot about One Piece, really showing his intense nerdum for it, as well as other things in the big three and other shonen things here and there. Mostly sticking to that, I think, because you think like a lot of shoujo probably, not to generalize or anything, but like a lot of stories, like Heidi, right? Heidi, the 1970s anime that Takahata directed, Miyazaki's involved with, and it's amazing. I love it. I'm enjoying the piss out of it, with a group watch. And that one, I don't even know if it really counts into either of the categories here. So the conceit that he's saying here with thematic versus technical storytelling is this idea of like technical meaning the practicality and the detail, and basically the detail, and like giving more information and almost grounding it in a way, it seems, because like a lot of his problems with Bell is that this does not make sense, and talking like this couldn't, this is outrageous or something, versus Summer Wars, although it was a little apologetic for Summer Wars, I think. So he does point out some of the technical weirdness in that movie, but like it's a movie, and it's the same way, and he's trying to wrestle with this idea of suspension of disbelief, and it's like, you want to do it in service of the story it's trying to tell thematically, and sort of like the stuff that doesn't have to do with the nuts and bolts, like kind of the character arc, the emotional thing, emotional through line, broad concepts, themes. It was a little tough for me to listen to sometimes, because like I just don't like either of these kinds. Like really too much thematic, too much technical. It's really difficult for me, because and I also think it's a case-by-case basis. I am not enjoying One Piece for the technical aspects. For like the way he was describing One Piece, I was like, that's cool that you enjoy it for that. And I'm not even trying to say that then the thematic things are what I like either, because I'm not even trying to think about my themes, because I think everyone really gets caught up and choked really by this idea of themes and like concepts and amorphous stuff. I kind of just give a shit about the moment to moment, like fun. I don't know if that sounds condescending or anything, but like the thing I like about One Piece, when he's bringing up One Piece, right, and he talks about it a good chunk of it, a good deal of it, like I like the interactions with the crew and the comedy and the interactions and stuff, the dialogue and things. I don't know if I can really box that qualitative aspect into something that's technical or thematic. I like it. It's kind of a blend, really, because I like that we can recall and how things make sense, that Luffy, for example, doesn't recognize who Sogeking is. He's like, oh, who's that? And when it's very obvious who it is. And that's so funny. And it's, and that you could say that's like a technical aspect. And then maybe the thematic aspect, I don't know, for example, like the whole culmination of Rob, because I'm in Water 7 right now, Ennie's Lobby. And the whole culmination that leads Robin to have that big emotional outcry that I don't want to spoil in case that big moment. That's a very culmination, almost thematic, I suppose, but there's technical aspects because it's like her mom said, it's something based on her mom saying, and then Luffy saying this thing, and it's kind of the logic, but then it's a mix, right? It's just and I'm not trying to dissuade or disprove this concept. I really like that he just kind of, here's something I've been thinking about lately. And it's not like base, I don't know if there's a term for it in other places or it's been researched before or whatever, but it's something I've been noticing, trying to use in order to implement to get a better understanding of people's opinions and articulate why we like the things that we like. And that aspect is phenomenal. I love that that he's going out there, like, and also that it's, he's making it clear that it's very long form, unscripted, with some points. Although he's very articulate, he is so you cannot tell that he's talking off the top of his head, like I am right now. Like he always sounds like he's reading a script, and that's not a bad thing. I mean it in the way that's like, it sounds so well thought out. Almost maybe deceptively so in some, perhaps. And I think it's the confidence that he's saying these things, right? But no, I just really like that he's putting this concept out there without the desire to turn it into a polished script, an idea, and like proving it, and just sort of, it's just like, here's something I've been thinking about, and just throwing it out there. I love that because I've had these similar kind of ideas, not about this particular aspect, but other scripts that I've had and have made. I've been discouraged about making them because they just seem too nebulous or just like whatever, and they're not based on any reality or something, and so I just feel not as comfortable sharing them. But I still think they're interesting, so it's like I'm caught in caught in the middle there, where it's like, man, this is a really cool idea I had, but I don't have the most confidence in it or anything. And so giving it this kind of middle ground vehicle where you're giving the caveats of like, I'm not trying to make this a well-formed script or like trying to prove this in any particular way, but I am still interested in it, and here's what I think, kind of thing. I do really like that. And I did appreciate that he went through the trouble of editing this even lightly, showing some clips from Belle and some other things and like that. I appreciated that. But yeah, I just thought this was really interesting. Not the, like, I gotta say, him talking about One Piece is intense. It's really intense. And I can imagine a lot of that has to do with how he's been bouncing off of other people who are just as intense. And they've been talking about in this chamber of sorts, and like the colloquialisms and trends and things like that for years at this, and that sort of heat chamber, and being super critical, and because you love the show, you love the series, and it's being that fervorous and intense. To me, I worry, not for you or anything, just for my personal thing, it's if I was to go that hard for this kind of show, I feel like I would get cynical. I feel like I would not enjoy it as much. And I don't want that, because I'm loving the piss out of this show. I'm shocked at how good it is. Like, y'all did not do a good job. I've said this before in other places. Y'all did not do a good job of selling this show. It's literally, it's the most, it's arguably the most popular fucking manga on Earth. Well, at least most highest selling, It's kind of the number one for 20 years. And yet, what the fuck? Like, I can't believe it, how good this fucking show is. Yeah, I've been watching the anime mostly, and y'all could be critical of that all you want, but don't give a shit. Don't give a shit. Does it really matter if I'm actually like really enjoying it either way? If I wasn't enjoying it, then yeah, then maybe you'd be kind of pissed. Be like, you see, I knew it. But no, it's wonderful. It's top notch shit. But just like, I would be worried of thinking too hard or looking too into it and thinking of like, oh, what is this? Because there are clear mysteries in this show. I am worried of trying to speculate, because then I'm going to be disappointed when it's not that thing. I mean, heck, Oda loves subverting things. I think he really likes surprising people, and I think he does a really good job at it. Or even just things like that make sense technically, right? Even that, I sometimes I get just taken aback or just blindsided by like, oh, that totally makes sense. And it's like, oh, that's a great way to do it. Or that subverts, I can never really tell where it's going. not really. I mean, even having like all the shonen whatever, and like I'm gonna put aside the fact like yeah, it beats the bad like besides the basics, I don't really know how the moment to moment beats are gonna go, which I really love. And there now I'm just geeking about One Piece. Sorry, you know that's how it is. Yeah, I just really like this idea. The video concept itself and the actual idea of a thematic and technical storytelling is interesting. I just think it would have to really apply to a case by case basis, and there's definitely some shows where like neither of them make a difference. At least to me, I don't think. Or maybe I'd have to think a little more specifically or broadly. Those are two opposite shapes. Specific and broad are two different things. I don't know. I had to think of it in maybe think of it at a different angle, perhaps, of how some of these other shows that I've been really enjoying. But is it for the technical thing? Is it for the thematic thing? Is it both? Is it neither? I don't know. I just think it's interesting. Really cool. Now for what I thought were the best videos of the week. The ones I thought were the best videos of the week. Yeah. And this first one's Evader. Who could that be? Well, it happens to be Joji Matthew. Evader, aka Ava, aka Joji. I don't know if you go by Joji. That's old, very old YouTube channel name. Wrong channel at this point. But Ava, she's come back with after a year, by the way. Jeez, I'm happy. But it was just like I was actually really taken aback by the last video was a year ago. I didn't think it was that long. Wait a minute. No, yeah, the other one was that long. Yeah, so it was a year ago. That's nuts. Anyway, but this one is about the racist anime Guy Next never made, Chocolate Picture Panic Show, and it's really on the best for me because like Ava just brings it with the visual aesthetic here. I don't be like editing, because it's not really editing as much as it is the artistic choices and the filters you're putting on and the way you're depicting the creators, and you're not just showing their image on screen. You have this nice kind of aesthetic to them and framing them in a reliable way. Reliable as in like when you cut back to the same art, the same creator, it's the same looking effect, so that it actually sticks in the audience's mind. Because a lot of these are just like, who is this guy? It's like some random. It's not like big names. Like I like that you didn't even like dwell that much on Yoshinori Kaneda, even though that would be a name that maybe some people would like really stick onto or something, which I really appreciated. There was a lot. I can tell there's a lot of research put into this. I just think I would have liked a little more detail, I guess, about. In terms of the manga as well as the anime, like you're showing the clips and things like that, and I think that's good. I'm not looking for like a plot summary in the same way. And you do give a plot summary for the manga. I think I really enjoyed your insight into the manga and kind of really being able to put the racist stuff kind of like here, not aside, because putting it aside I think is not smart, kind of unsavory in itself. In its own way, but I still think it is important to talk about, and not just like it reminded me that reading about it in the Anime Encyclopedia, they're just like flagrantly racist, and they're just like that's all it's amounted to, and like yeah, it's important to really call that out and like say that yeah, this isn't okay, but to dwell on that I think is reductive, and I do appreciate that you made this video with that, and the tactfulness I think you brought to it was really special. I think, yeah, I just would have wished like a little more detail, like kind of more visuals of the because it does look incredibly experimental and interesting, and just kind of more if you gave more specifics of like even the when you say that it's like having watched this multiple times in editing this video, and I'm like I wish I could have gotten that perspective or like myself. I guess I should just go watch it. I suppose that would be the trick. The thing is, it's tough because like when I'm thinking about my Ninku video, I'm expecting people to not watch this show. So I'm packing it with stuff that is like, if you're never going to watch it, and this is the only video you're going to ever interact with this media at all, at the very least, I want you to see this, And so I feel like I didn't get personally to see, not like I want you to give the whole thing or whatever, but I don't know. I feel like I would have wanted more from it, perhaps from the OVA's visuals in particular. But maybe that's because I haven't seen it. I could have said the same thing about Hayden's video with Katsu, because they don't really use the OVA footage too much either compared to all the other stuff that they do. But I'd seen it. I had already seen Katsu. I don't mind that. So maybe that the criticism is a little unfounded, personally. Maybe. But no, I just really appreciate the polish here, the tactfulness that you brought to it. The information is new and interesting, and the having the scans as an extra on Patreon is really smart and things like that. I'm just hoping for more for more. I'm just looking forward to the next video if it see if it takes a year or whatever. Not to offhand, because I get you were working on the movie and stuff like that, and it was a huge project. Yeah, so I mean, I just really enjoyed the video. I thought it was a really good shot, really awesome. I did happen to catch this one thing. Petsu tweeted it, and it was like, okay, anime video, an hour long. All right, let's go. Demystifying Digital Devil story from Marsh, and Marsh pretty much talks about Shin Megami Tensei, the whole thing. That's really his channel. And he's talked about these particular novels for a while. So I think these are the original novels that he says at one point that these are the original novels that spun everything. Because Persona comes from Shin Megami Tensei, and Shin Megami Tensei is coming from Digital Devil Story, it seems. Wow. And so what he does here, hour-long video, he basically gives the plot synopsis for all 9 of the novels, the 3 original Digital Devil stories, and then the 6 new Digital Devil stories, all of which are, I think pretty much all of them are untranslated. It didn't seem like the first 3, I think the first 3 were maybe to some extent, because he had made videos on those before, and he still does talk about them in detail in terms of giving you the arc of the story and the characters and beat by beat. The first one, I think, it was interesting because there's an OVA for this, and that's why I was like, oh, anime video, because he does use some anime footage from Digital Devil Story in particular. And I was like, wait, what are these character designs? They look so familiar. It's the character designer for Double Zeta Gundam and Char's Counterattack. So if you can picture those characters, it's kind of like they kind of look like Kogawas to me. And I bet you're gonna be like, I don't look like Kogawa. Okay, okay. I think they look like, all right. But I was like, I put my finger up. What is it? And it's those 2 mainly. Anyway, I was shaking the table a lot. But yeah, so it was interesting that it seems that the OVA is based on the first one, and so he actually uses the OVA footage for that to really go beat by plot point by plot point. But then he does use some footage in trying to imagine what the visuals might be for some of these novels later on, and then especially for new Digital Devil Story, he uses a lot of illustrations, just book illustrations or art in general. I don't know about fan art necessarily, but just kind of official illustrations of this sort of thing. And surprisingly, the video mostly managed to keep my attention the whole time. There was definitely moments where I was just kind of zoned out. I think around novel 4 or 5, I guess. Then 6, I want to kind of tune in and see how it ends, type of thing. But I think there does have to be there is an interesting utility to this, because it is kind of where it all began, or it seems that maybe it all began with a video game. I'm not too sure. I do remember, think that these 9 were responsible for all this other thing, all the video games and stuff. But yeah, that surprisingly it was pretty engaging all the way through. I like that he didn't really riff on the story too much. There's a lot of ridiculous stuff and crazy things happening, and he keeps the snide commentary quite to a minimum, just enough where he's like, yeah, isn't that fucking nuts? Or just I guess he didn't like Floridians, or because there's a big meteorite crash lands, God sends a meteorite and destroys all of Florida. It sounded bazonkers. Yeah. And so there's some little things here and there, but those are welcome, I think, instead of just very dry synopsis the whole time. And I like that again gives his opinion on the book towards the end. It's like, this one it wasn't as interesting as the other one. But like, I also really appreciate his attitude towards the whole thing. This could have very much been like a situation of like, wacky Zacky, what the worst books ever, ridiculous, and kind of like hyperbolizing how bad they are. But he really takes an even-handed approach. We're like, that's crazy, whereas like, I think the first one's really interesting. As I've been learning more and more about, he's like, it's not Shakespeare, things like that. Giving you credit where it's due, but acknowledging the absolute batshit stuff that happens in it, which is fair. I think he just is really like even-handed with it and does a really good job with it. Descriptions and his delivery is very even-handed and takes enough time on each one, I think, to really give you the full, but with also giving you the full understanding that like, yeah, it's not gonna it's not gonna be as like detailed or anything. I don't know. And later on, because like he hadn't read any of these. All these, I think, pretty much all of them are untranslated. Because maybe the first couple are, but like the first fan translated. But like the new ones, he had never talked about before. And so like there was some of them. It's like very bare plot points, sort of there. But they're still, you can kind of get the trend of the story, and you're not like, it doesn't feel like you're reading the back of the box. It actually feels like investigative and like new information, even though it's all new for me. I don't know anything about this franchise, but I just thought it was interesting and I really enjoyed it. It was really cool. Finally talking about another Teeaboo video, and I think it's another retro. I don't really talk about his other season, as like episode 2 of Zeta or something like that, which is mostly what he does. But I really enjoy checking out Retro Monday OVA Drive, OVA Drive, and this is the reason I want to talk about this one and not like this Project Aiko one last week or other stuff that he's made, is because this particular one was Twinkle Nora Rock Me, and I was like, let's watch it. And I actually was able to pull it up, and then he didn't have any copyright, so he just had the video on his. You don't have to pull it up separately like you usually do with his stuff. So that was nice. So you can just kind of recommend this video on its own. That helped a lot. And so yeah, I ended up finally watching Twinkle Nora Rock Me, and watching it with him was great. He is really insightful and like fair, and not like, and also like willing to speak out against things that he doesn't like and things he's uncomfortable with, like the some of the taking advantage of women rapey kind of aspects that are present in places in this OVA. Not to the point, like, to me, I have a different tolerance to that. I kind of, not like I condone it or anything, but it's like I can probably tell it's not going to go anywhere. So if it doesn't even go anywhere, and then that's just my line. But he's really willing to actively call it out, like, that's not okay, that sucks, and that's shitty or whatever. But he also brings in this really great perspective where it's like, actually, it's nice that they don't show any panty shots in this particular moment here. Where it's like, that's a good point to that. And and this was also, and I really appreciated his more nuanced take. And I was hoping, as the guys was watching it with him, because I had the same opinion, that like, yeah, the in between thing where like some of the dance sequence and then the opening chase scene, whatever, the kind of police situation at the beginning where there's no in betweens, and it's like a animatic almost, like an animated storyboard almost, is really unfortunate and not a great artistic choice. And yeah, the story is kind of shallow. And kind of weird, wacky, all over the place. The powers are just kind of whatever and can kind of come out of nowhere. But I do think that he ultimately takes it in the way I would hope for, where it's just like, this is just fun and kind of weird, and like you kind of are like, oh, that was good, or like the music's good. When you can tell an OVA is not great, as long as it's not boring. When it does something good, it actually sticks out a little more. And then when it does the bad thing, you kind of like laugh and kind of roll your eyes at it, sort of thing. And I prefer that experience over, I don't feel a fucking thing, or it's like, this is so dull or irritable or something. Like, this wasn't even that irritable per se. Like, I'm not irritated at like the because I wasn't really going into this for that. It has such an infamous reputation for this now that the audience expectation is different. you know, than if you're going into something either completely blind or with favorable expectations, right? And of course, I always like his analysis afterwards, where he really goes not frame by frame, but sort of like skipping through the whole thing from the beginning and pointing out certain things that he's like, oh yeah, I actually totally forgot it opened with that, and kind of recollecting and digesting the thing you just watched. I'm so bad at that. I wish I did more of that, but like it literally does double the time, right? This is like a half-hour OVA, and then it's an hour, right? So, you know, I really appreciate what he does. I always really love his perspective, and I was happy to watch this for the first time. For the first time, I was able to watch an anime along with him, both of us fresh. That was really cool. I liked that a lot. And the last video we're talking about is, of course, the Pause and Select video. Who is the otaku in My Dress Up Darling? And, you know, it's so funny where he's like, oh, this is going to be a little quicker, a little less, you know, less flashy or whatever. He still makes cool shit. Like, even like his use of a camera and how nice his footage looks. And then, of course, his very careful choice of editing with, like, you know, not having any of the mouth flaps. It really has an effect once you notice it, that he doesn't show clips with the characters' mouths talking, and it's very careful in that way. And if he does have like slight audio underneath it, so it's kind of intentional that you know, just for that. Even little amalgamations here and still using that. The ad was amazing. Like, the ad is really well made. It's really charming and like insightful and shot well again. Like, he made Boxu like their own ad, you know. They can just use that for I wonder if they ask for it, you know. It's like, oh my god, you made our product look really good. You know, you didn't have to use any of their I like that you started at first and then cut a hole through the green screen or something like that. That was really neat. Like, it's just so well made, man. But then, of course, the topicalness of using My Dress Up Darling to talk about a broader topic, similar to what Gil was doing way back, with taking something like, oh, Midori Days, and let's go explore this bigger topic of otaku and things like that. And so, like, this analysis of otaku, and I think the strongest point in the video was definitely like the Japanese definition being like, in 1986 it was defined as blah 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 blah, using a particular individual. In 1980 they were a bunch of pedos and serial killers. In 1986 they were cultists. In 2008 they were in like examples I had never heard of, and that's saying something. It was just like really insightful in that way, and he didn't go into detail or unnecessary detail in that way, but that was like a really powerful way to demonstrate that point of like, it's hard to pin down a precise definition into, you know, it actually makes sense that you can argue whether or not someone is an otaku. It's not a clear thing. It's not like politician. Are they a politician? Like, no, like there's a clear definition for things like that. Or for grocery store owner, you know, requirements: own a grocery store, right? But otaku is way more nebulous, and so tackling that's interesting. And then the performativity part, which I did appreciate that he kind of had to go to a detour and go for a few paragraphs to, you know, give some context and clarifications and try to avoid the wasps in that way, before really tackling this idea, which was really interesting in the performative aspect. Yeah, I just thought it was really insightful and interesting, relevant. You know, not like a video is good if it's relevant, you know. I think it's a factor. I just kind of like, at this point, you make such good stuff, I really want to see you succeed. So I think it's great and like a positive point that you're choosing this show that is well received and popular, and relevant, like just finished airing type of thing. So I'm like, I'm hoping this video does well, and you know, you don't put out mid, so I don't know if I don't think your audience is really going to be all that disappointed. I just hope you are able to build more of an audience, because you deserve it, you know. Anyway, I hope I said enough on enough nice things. I guess it was a very, very good video. Tozen, as it be. All right, that'll do with this installment of AniTube Digest. Thank you very much for watching. You guys are great. You have a great week. Yo, peace.